I started a business at a very young age, as you mentioned, and it blew up and took off. And before I knew it, it was doing billions of dollars in sales. And on the way up, it was doing hundreds of millions of dollars. And I was the guy that took a lot of pride in being the first one there and the last one to leave, and pounding on my chest and telling myself that I was doing all that for my family. And it was great, but I also lost it all. And it was extremely humbling.
Welcome to the Paid to Create podcast, where we dig into the secret strategies of successful creators making a lucrative living. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
I just have to tell you about Clothier, the marketing platform that has seriously transformed my business. You know how running a business can be insanely time consuming, right? Well, Clothier has been a game changer for me. It's honestly like having an entire marketing team in my pocket. And what I love most is that it automates all the tedious daily tasks for me, from marketing to sales to even customer experience. I can't believe how much time and energy I've saved since I started using it. And get this, with Clothier, I can create websites, funnels, courses, membership sites, email campaigns, calendars, surveys, you name it. It's made managing my business so much simpler and more affordable. Honestly, I can't recommend Clothier enough. If you're curious, head to paidcreatepodcast.com/Clothier to start your trial. Trust me, you won't regret it. Welcome everyone to the Paid to Create podcast. I'm AJ Roberts, and alongside me, as always, is Sarah Jenkins, and our guest today is Kent Clothier. He is a nationally recognized entrepreneur, performance coach, and speaker. He started his first business at 17, so he's a young buck. And he's gone on to do incredible things, generating over $1.8 billion in annual sales by the age of 30, which is fucking phenomenal. And he's, in real estate, he's in coaching, consulting. He's got a killer mastermind that I was a part of for a little bit. He's just, out of all the people I know, he has such depth in his wisdom, and it's like you get labeled real estate guy or that, but it's like truly someone that like kind of has impact and input on really any topic. And I'm so glad you joined us today.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
Pleasure.
Bro.
What's been going on, man?
Same old. Just keep on moving, right?
Yeah.
Keep on lots of cool opportunities, certainly in the real estate space. But as you said, lots of stuff going on from a coaching perspective and mastermind perspective, and kind of just, as a saying goes, there's only one way to coast, and that's downhill. So just keep on pedaling. Yeah. So that's what I do.
Yeah. Now we know about seasons as an entrepreneur, and you go through different seasons. You've gone through a lot, from absolute heartbreak to massive success. We were talking a little bit before the show. You're kind of in a new season right now. Maybe talk about a little bit about what's currently going on for you and the shifts that's happening.
Well, you mentioned it earlier. I've been doing this for a long time, and I just turned 53, so I'm like 35 years in business at this point. And I can tell you that with all that experience comes wisdom and a lot of insight. And so, this season of my life, I've really started focusing a lot of attention on helping other entrepreneurs, really helping them unlock some of the things that's going on. There's a lot of people out there, in my opinion, that they've kind of solved the income challenge. And they think they're business owners, but they're not. And helping them bridge that gap from hustler to CEO, what that looks like. How do you make that transition? How do you really turn this high income, this job, if you will, that's taking care of your family, but how do you actually turn it into a business? How do you actually bridge that gap and make that next leap? And so it's something I found a lot of passion in, and I think I've got a lot of wisdom to impart on people and kind of help them maybe avoid some of the pitfalls of it if I can. And it's really exciting to kind of help people do that.
Yeah, maybe for those that, like, when you say hustler, because like there's all that talk, work hard, sleep when you die, all that talk, and it kind of gets beat into your head as an entrepreneur, right?
No
like if you're not working, you're wasting time, and it's like you'll be with your kids, and it's really hard not to be present because your mind's on something else. So like define kind of the difference between a hustler and a CEO, because I think that most people, to them, the harder you work, that makes you a better entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Multiple things can be true at the exact same time. That's absolutely true. So like in my 20s, I would be, there's not a chance that I, out of authenticity, I couldn't say that I was absolutely a hustler. I mean, I was the guy that was, I started a business at a very young age, as you mentioned, and it blew up and took off. And before I knew it, it was doing billions of dollars in sales. And on the way up, it was doing hundreds of millions of dollars. And I was the guy that took a lot of pride in being the first one there and the last one to leave, and pounding on my chest and telling myself that I was doing all that for my family. And, you know, as you get a little older, you look back on that and you're like, yeah, none of that was true.
Okay, but you can't go from like I hustled as a young buck and then made, you know, billions and just leave that gap there. That's unfair.
Well, no, I mean, I got all the accolades. I made all the money and it was great, but I also lost it all. And so right after my 30th birthday, I got into a run-in with my partners and, you know, got into a pissing match, and I'm like, I'm out of here. You guys take it. And they paid me my due, and I walked out the door, and then we proceeded to sue each other for the next 2 years. And over 2 years, I lost every single dollar I had ever made. And it was extremely humbling because I was that guy. Thank God social media wasn't around back then. But if it had been, I would have been the douchebag that we all make fun of.
That,
right?
actually. My 20s are not online.
Yeah, thank God, right? But I was that guy. I mean, all you had to do was ask me. All the success I was having was because of me. I was the arrogant, cocky guy. And then
You did say billions, though, so that's hard to get around in my own head for even anyone listening to this podcast. It's like from startup to billions, but it was all because of me, and it's in my head. Is it?
No, I'll tell you what. It was because of the industry, right? So what people don't you know, the grocery industry, and this was in the grocery field, you know, it was a $700 billion a year business. The average truck, the semi you see driving down the road filled with whatever it is,
Bananas.
is worth $80,000, right? So if you sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of truckloads a year at $80,000 a clip, it starts adding up
I'm
real
just thinking
quickly.
of all the prime
Jeez.
vehicles that I see there,
Right.
because there's one of the
and
warehouses out by me, and I just see those vehicles.
If it's a truck filled with health and beauty care or pharmaceuticals, I mean, it's literally $1 million that are sitting on that truck at any given time.
So it's like the cargo ship industry, what's coming in, going up, but trucking.
Well, what we were doing is we would
Specific.
go into, so every single item, there's about 50,000 items in a grocery store. And every single one of those items, the manufacturer is selling it for a price geographically in one market.
Yep.
And it is literally the same. This Aquafina is exactly the same bottle of Aquafina, whether you buy it in San Diego or you buy it in New York City. But the difference is that the manufacturer sells it for a different price.
Yep.
So here, a case of this might cost $40. New York City, same grocery store, they may pay $120. So what we did was I would walk in and buy it out the back door,
Oh, interesting.
buy the truckload, and I'd pay them $50 a case. I would put it on a truck, ship it to New York, and I would sell it for $100 a case.
Oh, my word.
Early arbitrage.
Holy crap.
Literally, it was purely an
digital,
arbitrage
yeah,
business, right? So I never manufactured anything, and we would wire the money. And you have to realize that a grocery store makes their net margin is 2%.
Right.
So if a guy like me that walks in the door and offers to pay them 20%
They're going to give it to you.
up front, you don't have to put it on your shelf, so you don't have to do anything. I'll prepay you. You don't have to wait on the money, and then I'm going to take. It was a no-brainer for them.
Huh.
And so, yeah, we started that business when I was 17. By the time I was 23, we were doing roughly 50 million a year. 26, it was up to about 100 million. 28, it was 800 million. 30, it was 1.8 billion.
And when you're in your 20s, you're not going to believe, like, you're a genius. Like, everything supports that ego. Everything supports
You
that.
have no
it's
reference for failure.
Yeah, because you've knocked it out of the ballpark, and it was your idea. And of course, it's like, so you
I
don't.
wouldn't say it's not genius sort of level. You know, I'm not a genius
I'll
expert or
give you
anything like
how
that, but
impactful what you just
geez.
said really is that I can literally remember I was 29 and I was signing a bonus check for one of my managers that worked for me. It was at the end of the year. And I could see his year-to-date earnings on the check, right? And this is like December. And I could see that he had made $250,000 a year. Now, mind you, this is 1999.
That's a lot.
He made 250 grand that year. And I can actually remember thinking to myself, how does anybody survive on $250,000 a year?
Survive like they can't live on that much?
Yeah.
What?
Because I was so jaded. I had never.
How much do you shop?
Well, this was my monthly American Express bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So in
God.
my mind, because
They hate me.
the success had been just a part of my entire journey. I had no point of, and it was, my four walls were that entire business. Like,
Yeah.
I there was nothing outside.
And like you said, there's no social media. You had nothing to even compare it
I had
against.
no point of
perspective
reference
is
to
awesome.
understand
Yeah.
that it was wildly out of control. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And luckily, like I said, walking out of there and losing everything gave me the perspective, right?
I'm curious because like I feel like there's always like the universe somehow always gives us little clues along the way, but we tend to ignore them. So like leading up to that exit, had there been things that kind of like, you know, it's like a little bit of, but nah, and you just kept going. And this was like the catastrophic, like you need to change, and I'm gonna just like, you know,
Pound
You
it
know,
in your head.
looking back, I mean, look, as you look back on it, you know, as I got into my 40s and in my 50s, I look back on, you know, there's nothing that really stands out to me per se. But I will tell you that when I did lose everything, you know, it took me basically 22 months to wipe myself out, down to basically zero. And when I was going through that, I have no problem admitting it was the single worst experience of my entire life, right? Going through a divorce, because I had been so sheltered and enclosed and my entire world was inside of that business. There was all my friends were inside the business, you know, all my relationships
Lost
were inside. So it was lost at every level.
Right.
And that was devastating. And I mean, I was depressed, I was suicidal. It was really, really bad. But if you'd have told me then that I would ever look back on that and say, that's the best thing that ever happened to me, I would have told you you're crazy. But as I got further away from it, I look back and I could not be any more grateful.
it prepared you.
It-
You've never been there again, so nothing
It was
that's happened is
exactly
that bad.
what I needed at the exact moment that I needed it, because I did not understand the arrogance. I did not understand the cockiness. I did not understand any vulnerability at all that I had. And getting kicked in the teeth and getting really kicked in the teeth put me in a place to where there's only one way to go, and that was up, and kind of prepared me for the rest of my life that any time I got hit, it was never as bad as that.
Yeah.
Like I know I can do anything, right? And that is when you really weaponize that, especially in business, you know, I say this a lot, but imagine, you know, if I called you and I said, AJ, I'm gonna become an MMA fighter.
Totally.
Right? And I want to be the greatest MMA fighter in the world. I don't want to just do it, you know, at some small scale. And listen, brother, I have watched every YouTube video. I've read every social media post. I've read every book. I've listened to. I think I'm ready. You've lost your mind, Ken. Right?
Yeah.
Those books are pretty good.
Because I clearly have to get in the ring at some point.
What?
And
Well, there's my career.
if I got in the ring, then I would. One thing's for sure, I would expect to get hit.
Yeah.
And I'd expect to get knocked out. I expect to get choked out. All those things I would just expect to happen because it's part of the journey. I think what happens to people is that they come into business and they just don't expect to get hit. And so the best thing that ever happened to me was getting hit so hard that anything I go into now is like, I just expect to get hit. And it's okay. I'll be just fine. This is how a championship, you know, this is how you win it.
Yeah, this is because you know I've interviewed with the UFC fight. I'm a big UFC fan, but like they'll say, you know, like someone who has an undefeated record in the ring is not undefeated. They've been choked out.
That's
they've
exactly
tapped.
right.
They've been knocked out normally. Like there's some people, you know, they've never been knocked out, but like they have lost in training. Lots
training.
because
So many times.
because they might be best
not
on
in
their
the
feet,
ring.
but they're not best on the ground, or they might be best on the ground, but they're not best on their feet. But that's MMA is an all-around sport. But like you said, like business is very similar. It's an all-around sport. You're always going to be bad at something, and you're and so
I mean, again, imagine, you know, knowing what you know now. You just know the hits are coming.
yeah.
It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And you know you've got the resolve to handle it. What I think a lot of new business owners especially come in is they just don't expect to get hit. And when they do get hit, it's pretty humbling pretty quickly, right? And
Or they expect
Thank
results
God.
faster.
yeah,
You know, like
I mean,
those
they're just
kind
buying into all the nonsense that's online instead of what this really takes.
But I think that's good. I think it's normal for growth.
Yeah,
I've seen even like family members and other little or, you know, younger versions of me that have come in and tried to market and tried to grow business, and it then just it fails and they've lost everything. And I'm like, well, you know, that's how it goes. And they're
That
like,
is how it
what?
goes.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's how it goes.
But I believe that the
Get back up.
depth of your pain will be the depth of your happiness, or the depth of your, you know, because it's like without that, it's like without the opposite, you know, you just cruise along. So like you'll have success, but like how great of a success you can have, and what they call it levels. There's levels to the game. There's levels to the game of relationship, life, you know, business. And the reason for that is like, it really comes to how much stress can you handle. And stress is caused by those hits.
That's right.
And if you've never been hit before, like if someone just comes out of nowhere and just blindsides you, like you go into panic, and those emotions don't go away. But if you've gone through them before, you have coping strategies. And
That's
I imagine
exactly
like
right.
from that point on, like once you had nothing, like you've got hard work and you're not afraid. Like fear is almost gone because what are you going to take from me?
You nailed it. That's right.
And so you just went.
That's it. There is no more fear. Like I know it didn't kill me. It came close, but it didn't kill me. And
What level are you? Maybe I'm like level 3, maybe play 3 at least, right?
yeah, look, and so I think to your point, really, that was a game changer for me. It really helped me. I had no idea what the path was ahead of me. I just knew that whatever it was, I'd figure it out. And I wasn't, that I never wanted to go backwards, but I wasn't afraid of it. The fear part of it just goes away. I'm not afraid of, to this day, I'm not afraid of going backwards. I'll figure it out. But when that kind of comes off you, then it's amazing what you can actually accomplish.
Yeah.
It's super cool how you related the business growth and failing to the very bottom to even fighting when you've been knocked out and blacked out. Like there's so much correlation there. It's so cool.
Yeah.
But, oh my
I
word.
just think the expectation is just different. Like there's no way you could ever expect to become great at fighting without expecting
Without being knocked out.
to getting knocked out.
And also, you probably, when you feel comfortable, you know that's not going to last, right? So you have more gratitude,
That's actually
you have
really
more
good.
appreciation. You know, like, oh, things are good right now. Okay, let's
gonna
prepare.
change.
Let's prepare. Let's not get comfortable. Let's not do something stupid. So you don't make rash decisions because times are good, right? You're probably a lot more calculated and in that sense.
No doubt. Well, and with the years and the wisdom, you learn to prepare for those situations. You understand that they're probably in all likelihood coming. You don't panic, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm a better CEO today than I've ever been, and part of that comes that I understand the nature of business. I understand the seasonality of business, not just on a yearly basis. Like things happen, right? Whether it's a recession, whether like the ups, the downs, it's never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. So kind of continuing that, obviously there's a lot of clues in what we said, what makes someone a good CEO. But as you've learned, there's a difference between being a hustler and someone who can make money. Just because you own a company doesn't mean you're a real CEO. So what would you say are the qualities of a real CEO?
Well, I think the very first thing to do is to kind of have a wake-up call with yourself. And look, if you, quote unquote, own a business, it's real simple to figure that out. Just leave. Leave for 2 months and don't tell anybody. And if you come back and there is more money in your bank account than when you left, you probably own a business. Anything short of that, your ass owns a job. Yeah. Because it is in direct correlation with your effort. Like your effort determined part of that outcome, which means there's work to do. It means there's an opportunity to become a better CEO or opportunity to, and so what makes a great CEO is one, having that wake up call and owning it. And then two, realizing that in order for the CEO, the true killer CEO and leader to come out, like that hustler side of your brain has got to die. Meaning as hustlers, we definitely recognize that this is how we got here. We've got all the accolades, all the money, everything put us in this place, right? We have solved the income challenge. But you have to calm that voice because that voice naturally is always going to try to creep up and fight for a seat at the table. And so when it comes to hiring, just using it as an example, you'll start feeding your mind, well, nobody's going to do it as good as I do it, or I can't slow down to train anybody, or nobody's going to care. Whatever it is, that is the hustler. That's basically trying to give you all the objections to why you don't want to do this.
I got to do it myself because nobody can
do
it.
this.
Right. That's very long podcast. I have a lot of follow-up questions.
That's just not true. Like, the reality, as we know, is absolutely not. That is not true. There are plenty of people, quality people, that can do the job every bit as good as you can, whatever it is. Now, you may need...
then aren't you hiring the hustlers that you would have been for each department in your company?
Potentially.
Well, another question, then how many people under you as CEO, then did you make that transition?
I take a lot of pride in the fact that I'm in my organizations, in all likelihood, training entrepreneurs.
This is selfishly asked because I'm a CEO
No.
and I'm always learning.
And it's a catch-22. Right?
Yeah.
So here's the way I look at it. if I train somebody and they are, or bring somebody on and they are so good at their job that they could potentially leave me, right, and go do it on their own.
Oh, I love those
Which
hires.
which is a really fair objection. Why would I ever do that, Ken? Why would I train somebody to compete with me? Well, my answer
Those
would
are
be,
the ones you want to keep.
what's the alternative?
Yeah.
How are you ever going to be free? How are you ever going to have time freedom? And if you want to build a quality organization, it requires quality people. And it's your job to train them and pour everything into them, but it's also your job to create the culture and compensate them and create the environment where they don't want to leave.
And now they choose to stay.
They're choosing, because they
could. Do have another choice.
Right. They have a choice and they've been well trained, but they are choosing you.
Is it true that some people are not entrepreneurs? They could have that hustler mentality, that growth that you're looking for, but not entrepreneurial.
100%.
Is that what you look for?
What I look for is aspirational people, quality people. We hire we're kind of savages when it comes to hiring people. We put them through the ringer, right? It's a privilege to work for me in my organizations. And the people that are there,
See?
they want to be there. And they've bought into our culture, they've bought into our philosophy, they've bought into our vision. They're really good at their jobs. They understand how to do it and how to do it well. And so when we put those people in place, we pour everything that we possibly can in to make them the best version of themselves. I think that, at least in my humble opinion, that the vast majority of people, as long as they have an amazing culture, there's great leadership, they're being well thought of, well taken care of, well compensated, recognized, etc. The vast majority of people have no interest in taking the risk of going out on their own.
It's a risk.
And when they actually fully, that's not
Sure.
100%. And there are people that still will go, but the people that do go, good for them, right?
Yeah.
But the people that stay there, it's a choice. They're staying there because this is home.
Yeah, I see a different mindset from you on that. Like most people, when they would talk about it, a lot of people as business owners, they see it as a failure. Like, oh, they left me. You see it as like they graduated from.
Grew.
Like they're confident enough because of me. Like that's awesome. Like and like you say, you're prepared for anything. So when they leave, it's not like, oh my gosh. It's like, yeah, like okay, like let's go find the next person who's at that caliber to come in and grow them.
And here's the reason why it's like that is because, to me, it would be the height of hypocrisy. How dare I go out there and try to inspire people to do everything? I mean, this is literally my life. This is what I do every single day, and naturally, the people around me are going to gravitate to that message. How dare I then, when they're ready to spread their wings, stand in their way? Now, does that create impact inside of my organization?
Sure.
Of course. But I would never have any kind of ill will. I want them to go out there. And, it wouldn't be it's happened a few times where people have done that and then they quickly figured out, wait a minute.
Business is more than just
this is a lot. There's a lot more to this, and they've come running back, and I welcome them with open arms.
That's great.
Let's do this. Yeah. But look, I would be the ultimate hypocrite if I wasn't their biggest cheerleader. Like, if you think you can do this, let's go do it. Yeah. Let's figure it out. And in many cases, I've actually, invested or tried to help them do it. It's just.
I see that drive in them that you've even grown. So you're like, you could do it. So now let me help you. Yeah. And then when you invest in that, then that's working for both of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I almost feel as if, I'm sure there's anomalies, but I almost feel like when those people do leave, it's not like a fuck you, I'm out. Like most people when they leave, it's a very negative thing. I feel like it's not like, hey Ken, I've been thinking about this, and you take pride in it, and it's almost like this. It's like almost a celebration.
One of the coolest things that ever happened. A guy that worked for me for many, many years, young guy, and he wanted to go and start his own organization. He was very, very passionate about meditation and self-help and personal development, and he really wanted to go start his own thing doing that. He had found his own path. And prior to leaving, he showed up in my office with a gift, and it was basically 12 key things that he had learned from me over the decade we had spent together. It still hangs in my office today, right?
That's
He's like, I just want to let you know, this is the impact you. And
wow.
To me, that was probably one of the coolest gifts I've ever been given. And again, like I said, how dare I stand in the way of his dreams? It would be
not just did you make money with this guy, you also allowed him to make money, and look at the value that you put into that individual. Like the quality you've given his life.
Yeah. Right?
That's why you got into business in the first place, right?
Yeah. I mean,
benefit.
Look, at some point you solve the income challenge, right? And we've all accomplished that. I don't know about you guys, but I know for me personally, my why I do what I do, I identify with very closely. I keep it really close to me. And that is, I have a 9-year-old daughter and I have an 18-year-old daughter. And
Whoa,
I
18.
cannot think of anything more impactful if I died today that I know there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that would get on an airplane and fly out here to make a point of walking up to my 2 little girls and saying, your dad mattered. And that is a big, big deal to me. And it's really hard to have that so front and center and also not be rooting for the people that you're pushing along the way, right?
I think it's so key for people listening to clue in on that, because how many times does someone have a business, that does motivate, inspire in whatever capacity, but yet when it comes to their own culture, it's toxic. They're yelling at their salespeople, like, why haven't we made any sales? It's lunchtime. Like, you want me to die? Like you want this, let's go out of business, versus taking that time to be like, okay, how do we get better as a group? How do we improve? And then being their coach just as much as you are someone else's.
You just nailed it. You asked me what is a great, or what does it take to be a great CEO? I think that you have to make that switch mentally and understand that part of being a great CEO is you are the coach. Right. And again, other sports analogies, like it's your job to put the other coaches in place. It's your job to put the right players on the field. It's your job to take this, an NFL playbook at the beginning of the season is 1,000 pages and probably 10 3-ring binders. But when it comes down to the actual game, it is all condensed down to these are our plays for this game. And we've all seen it on the sidelines of the NFL where he's got, the coach has got the laminated 8x12 and he's calling the plays and that's not the playbook. That's the playbook for this game, right? And when you realize that that's what it looks like, you have to put the people, the systems, the leverage, and then you have to know what are the right plays to call at the right time. But first and foremost, you're the coach.
Yeah. I love you use football because I think that's a great way to look at it, right? Because you're the head coach, but there's always an offensive coordinator. There's always a defensive specialty. They're in charge of that, and you're just overseeing it all. And now, yes, you step in when you need to step in.
That's right.
Because you can do their job. Right, that's the power. Is you could do their job.
That's right.
But that they're going, because they're focused 100%. They're probably going to do a better job with you.
That's right.
And you're only stepping in crisis mode.
And it doesn't matter what it is. Every organization's probably got a sales function, marketing function, whatever it is, customer acquisition, finance side of it. When you hire great people, assistant coaches and they live it and breathe it every day, that's how you scale. That's how you get to where time freedom, not money freedom, kind of together. They definitely go hand in hand. But if everybody's really honest with themselves, the money freedom is one thing, but what you're really buying with that money is time.
Yeah.
If you want to have time freedom, you got to start figuring out what your actual role is. And back to the point, the hustler side of your brain will constantly tell you, no. We can't slow down the train. We can't put people in place. We can't afford to do this. We can't afford to do that. And when we start doing that to ourselves, the one thing you're robbing yourself of is that time freedom. It's just that simple.
So let's talk about hiring those people. You mentioned a few things, but you said you put them through a vigorous process, right? I think a lot of people hire too fast, right? They go, I have a problem, and they hire the first buddy or they do an interview. It's not quite the right person, but it's we need to fill this role. So obviously, I know you probably go real slow, but maybe share a little bit about how do you attract these A players, and then how do you make sure they're the right fit? Just because you're an A player doesn't necessarily mean you're then the right fit for the team, right?
No doubt. And so I can tell you that all I can speak to is my experience, right? And I can tell you that what you see is what you get. So when you see me online or you see me on videos or even if you're in my office, I'm the same guy anyway. So I attract a very specific type of person. I'm very upfront and out there with what our core values are, what makes us tick, right? And I think being dialed in on what makes you tick and what makes the organization tick and the culture that you've created and the core values and being very out there and upfront about it is a key element into attracting talent, right? And then we have a company we use, it's called Team Architects, and they do this cognitive as well as personality test. So we basically design whatever the position is, they have identified what all the key traits are and attributes on the way that person thinks, what are the skills they need to have, et cetera. And so when we are trying to attract talent to us, and I'm going to answer it two different ways. One, when we are trying to bring talent in, we're attracting in. We send them through that assessment before we'll ever even talk to them.
I'm not going to make notes.
And if they do not score, somewhere in the 80s or 90s, they're not even talking to us. Like we don't even, period, right? It's not even worth our time. Then we send them through an interview process that's multi-part, several different people they need to talk to bring in. But we already know they have the skills, they have the resume, they have the personality, they're a good culture fit. They cognitively, they process the information the way we need them and visualize the information the way we want them in that particular role. And then ultimately, we'll make a decision out of several candidates down the way. Now, if we're going for ridiculously talented people, same process on the back end, but rather than just try to attract them, which is, which most people, they throw up a job ad and expect people are always looking. The reality of it is people aren't always looking. Sometimes
do you do
people
recruiters or do you?
No, we actually do it a little more even elementary than that.
Interesting.
Depending on the organization that we're hiring for, we will go find who all of our competitors are nationally inside of that role, and we will use LinkedIn, and we will go directly. So, I'll give you an example. So we were hiring a chief marketing officer for one of our companies. And,
big role.
Yep. And we went right after a guy who had been the former chief marketing officer at Yahoo. And went directly at him and sent him through this entire process and hired him. And one of the most expensive hires I've ever made. But it was amazing, right? And if you want talented people, they're rarely looking.
They're probably either doing their own thing or they have a position already.
Right. Sitting pretty.
Yeah, because they're not sitting around waiting for an opportunity.
So an opportunity must come to them.
Right.
And a lot of times,
my best hires have that. They come to me and they're like, I got an offer. I wasn't looking. And I'm like, whatever, man. What was the offer? Like, what are you looking at? Why are you looking at it?
It's just something, and it might be, and a lot of times the comp, I tell you what, something else is fascinating to me about this is in many of those cases, our comp package is actually less than they were making. And so what got them was the recognition, the opportunity, the title, the opportunity to earn potential equity in our organization. Just being recognized for the value they bring, because in some organization they've been passed up or whatever the case may be, or they just don't want to be in this corporate environment. They want to be in a more entrepreneurial environment, whatever it is.
They want to see the growth potential. Like a lot, that's
we
super
have a lot of that.
But it's super interesting because I think as humans, like that's the key, right? Like this is completely
part of something
different, but same. But we were talking the other day about like women a lot of times will date potential, but they'll only put up with it for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're a confident guy, they can't tell much difference between confidence and competence. So in the beginning, they trust the confidence.
Right.
But after 3 years, they're starting to wonder,
Right.
is this dude ever going to step up? And eventually because what they want is they want to see that like our life is going somewhere. They want to be led, but they want it to go somewhere. And obviously I'm talking generalities here. There's a lot of variance to that, but like it just reminds me of that. Like I think in general, even myself, like you always want to be in any relationship, business relationship, personal relationship, like even in the gym.
Where it's going somewhere.
Like I don't go to the gym to be the same for the next 10 years. Like I have a goal, and even if it's just getting a little bit better, right? It's like I don't want to do the same thing over and over and over.
I don't have the same
again.
goals. It's fine. Whatever.
I think that they get stuck in they look up and they've been at some corporate job for 15 years, and it's just, to your point, it's not where they want to be. They're making plenty of money, but it's not checking the boxes.
Yeah, but they might have been making that money for 2-3 years, but there's no potential to go higher, and they're thinking to themselves, all right, I got 60 years left at this, or 40 years normally, right? 40 years left. Am I just going to do the same for 40 years? Because like you said, they've already been passed.
It suddenly looks exciting to be a part of something that's a little more entrepreneurial, and a leader that I believe in, the culture I believe in, and they move.
People cheat. They go, that one's better for me. That one's more exciting. That one's more opportunity. That one's more, sex, money, recognition, whatever. That's why people move on to that next relationship. But I think the same is in business. Is it more money? Is that more recognition? Is that higher director level, for manager level, whatever?
No doubt.
So it's all.
I just found it fascinating.
I love when you do men and women stuff.
I just found it fascinating that
all right,
that
go for
most
it.
of those hires we've made, we've literally paid them less than they were currently making. I would say 90%.
But it's probably something too, like also like they can see the vision.
You got it.
And it's the vision they're buying into. And because
Well, and their value as part of that vision.
Yeah.
Well, and again, it comes back to, as a CEO, as a leader, making sure that those core values and all that's down. This is that's what they're buying into. Like they're buying into really belonging to something that is checking a box for them, that they just don't feel that in their current situation.
So I have a weird question for you. When they say sometimes that the first 5 people that got you to your first million is not the 5 people that will get you to your next 10 million or whatever, what do you think of that?
I agree.
Do you?
Yeah, I think we all outgrow relationships, whether that's personally or professionally. The same guy that was your CPA when you were making $100,000 a year cannot be the same CPA when you're making 10 million. They just don't have the skill sets anymore. And the same is true of your friends, and the same is true of, inside of your own organization. There are now. I have some core people that are still
That's different.
absolutely.
Though. You grew, they grew.
But one of the most profound things that I did, certainly inside the last 10 years, is that I started hiring up versus hiring down. I think most entrepreneurs, when they come in, they have a tendency, you were kind of touching on it, they hire down. They hire somebody that ultimately they're going to manage, right? And then one of the key things that happened to me is I started hiring people that were a lot better than me for very specific roles. Again, some of the C-level stuff, and watched our businesses explode. And that was a really profound thing for me to learn.
Follow-up question. Do you ever hire too high and then they're not really at the level where you're trying to grow to? They're even higher than that, so they can't, like they're trying to manage a team of 25 people and you've given them 5, so they can't really hit the goals you've given for them.
Look, I've made bad hires in just about every area of business, period. So yeah.
I'm only asking you questions based on my own experience as well.
I can tell you in 35 years of business, I have for sure made bad hires in every area, right?
This podcast is
hire
worth
too
it.
high, hire too low, you name it. I've done it. But I will tell you that
I've also done it, but I'm like still figuring it out.
I will tell you the process we send them through now is about as, it's definitely not foolproof.
No,
but
you and I can talk
But it's
afterwards.
about as close to bulletproof as I've been able to find.
Interesting.
Meaning, we definitely don't hire out of convenience, and we definitely do not hire just because somebody knows somebody or because somebody, we do not put warm bodies.
Never hire because someone knows somebody, but if someone knows somebody that has a skill set, fine. I don't overlook that person.
Yeah, and
sure.
I think that probably I said it earlier, but I think it's probably worth saying again, is that when you view your business as it is a privilege to work for you, it kind of puts you in a box to where you're forced to make better hires.
Jeez.
And like,
Was it the best or worst podcast we've ever done? Because I feel very on the spot right now.
I don't have to do anything. I get to do this. Like I don't have to hire you. I get to hire you. If I want you, then this is an opportunity for us to do it. But I don't need to do this. And that kind of reframe mentally puts me in a position to where, in all of our organization, to where, we expect to hire good, talented people, but equally people that we want to do life with.
So let's shift gears. I think I know your answer based on kind of what happened when you were 30 and all of that. But on the flip side of that, a lot of people do hire people they think they can do good. Pretty quickly realize maybe it's not the right hire, but they hang on. And it might be because of ego, because I hired them, so like I can't be wrong. It might be because they want to give them a chance, but I'm assuming you probably let people go a lot faster than most. But, has that been difficult too?
I definitely used to do that. But I'll tell you what I do now is that we send them back through the process of that team architect's understanding. Because what it's allowed us to do as an organization is it's allowed us to understand the way that person thinks. So it may not be that they're wrong it doesn't make them a bad employee. We may have them in the wrong seat. And it may mean that we need to improve our processes to communicate with them. I'll give you a really good example of this. So hiring a sales rep, we had a guy that, and this was before we ever actually put team architects in place, but we hired a guy and he came from medical sales and was like one of the top guys in his organization. This guy was making a ton of money, and so we thought he'd do great of it. Came into our organization, he couldn't sell anything.
Do you do medical?
No.
Right.
And so once we ran him through that process, we understood his brain literally works different than he had been trained in medical sales. It's a slow, arduous, technical process. It is not thinking on your feet. It is not visualization. It is not social. It is not quick. Like in our sales is very, on the phone. Hey, we're making, especially in real estate, we're making decisions in real time.
Yep.
Like this deal's being done right here,
That
belly to
lot's
belly.
done sales
There is
by the
no-
end of the day.
Because if it's not, someone else is doing
It's
the
not,
deal.
there's no like, hey, I need to think about it for 2 weeks. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, we got to figure out how to come to an agreement. And so once we actually understood that about him, then it was great because it was the impetus to us going back and changing our meeting cadence with him, our training with him, taking him through the SOPs, actually slowing down and scripting. And now he's amazing.
So you took him back through your original hiring and
Right.
put him in a different role.
You trust, like, okay, like he must be good because he was doing this. It's
We
like-
took it
like
as
he's
a
done that,
personal,
yeah.
a personal hit that it wasn't on him.
Absolutely.
We did not know how to
Yeah.
lead him correctly.
Right.
And that was really beneficial to us.
I think
Yeah.
the same way, and sometimes I'm wrong.
You see that
Usually
in
I'm
college
right.
a lot with athletes. Like they play a role in high school and then they go to college. It's a different game, right? And even when they go to pros, it's faster, it's bigger. People are more skilled, and the coaches will move people around. And you'll have someone who maybe was quarterback in college that ends up being a receiver because they
It's
just
about being the coach.
Yeah.
Recognizing that and not making it about the player, but making it about, I know he's talented.
The strategy moves.
What do I have to do to figure out how to extract that value out
the
of
best out of him?
Yeah. And that's
Bigger,
been a
stronger,
really,
faster.
so in the past, I would just be like cutting.
Yeah.
I was just a cutthroat, ruthless, SOB, gone, see ya. Now, I take a lot of pride in that we're trying to solve the problem. And it doesn't mean we're going to find the solution, but at least we're making the attempt.
I was going to say, sometimes are people unteachable, though.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
It doesn't
But
matter.
at least
I'm not the only one that thought that.
We did everything
once
we
in a while.
could.
Yeah.
It's no longer like
it
it's
is
not my
definitely not
fault at this
foolproof.
point.
It is
Yeah.
definitely not foolproof. We absolutely still let people go, but in the end, we are looking at it, and is there an opportunity for us where we were not communicating correctly? Can we do better as a coach to get the most out of this player?
What I love about that is just like the depth of humanity to take that on as a business owner and say, look, this is a good human, but we've just given them the wrong thing. Like, let's try to figure out what they can do so they can win.
Well, and
Like, that's a big investment as a CEO into an employee.
And let me just say something, that I get the privilege of doing that because I have a very mature organization. When you're a new business owner, you may not have that opportunity.
don't
You may
have
not
partners.
have that privilege. Like, time is money, and you may have to cut quick and you do all those things. You try to head as much of that off with like the process I was telling you, but I get it. Like, not everybody can do that. Our business has been around for 20 years.
But most people could do a little personality. There's personality tests they could do.
100%.
One of the ones that we've used before is talent
was a good
dynamics,
one.
which is real good. Like it
Yeah.
shows if someone, like what they're
Leader,
going to be
follower,
best at on a
builder.
day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Like, so there is stuff out there that you can, like, I think it's more than an interview. I think that's the big key takeaway is it's more than just an interview. You can't just sit with
and
someone.
learning how to interview.
Yeah.
And
you-
more than a resume.
Yeah.
Resume doesn't mean
Yeah.
a lot
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's really understanding the way somebody ticks, and is this person right or wrong for that role, because you've clearly defined the role, and
Oh, that's funny you say that.
if they're not, then
I think most CEOs don't clearly define the roles they're looking for, because as your business grows, you fill many hats as
There's
you
no
go.
doubt.
And then you have to, that's why
Absolutely.
probably the 5 people that you start are not the 5 people that you're finished with.
yeah, well, when you start, you're typically looking for utility players. Like, you're just hiring. Hey, I
We
need
all get
somebody
the
to be my
job done.
executive assistant. I need somebody to be my office manager. I need somebody to do
You're
sales.
the
Like,
accountant as well,
yeah.
and you're going to ship boxes.
And then as a leader, what we end up doing is pouring,
Well, I mean, you're a hustler. You make up for the inefficiencies.
That's
not
right.
as a CEO, you
Yeah,
can't be a
yeah.
hustler. We've
part
already
of
said
it.
no.
But that's back to my point. That's a season. That's a season of the business. Like, we all go through that.
have so
And
many
then so
follow-up
basically you
questions.
go from a hustler to mid-level manager to CEO, and then eventually you get to where you're chairman of the board, and then you ultimately become the investor sitting on top of all of it.
What about partners? When you're a CEO, but you have partners.
Do I have partners?
What if you're a CEO and you have partners?
I have it today.
Well, you said it before the podcast. The ones that work are the ones that you're 100% in charge of.
Yeah.
The ones that haven't worked so
That's
good.
exactly right. So my situation, if I'm in the organization,
For someone else that I know.
I'm running the organization, right? You can be if you want to be my business partner on strategy or an investment or whatever the case may be, there's only one dude in charge. Like, this is not a democracy, all right?
It's not a 3-headed dragon.
No, this is absolutely a dictatorship, right? And
I say serotatorship. But yeah.
yeah, and that is the way it is. And if that doesn't work for you, then we can't be partners. And either you trust me, and I've earned that trust, or you don't. But this is definitely not a democracy.
And that's come from knowing yourself, though, right? Because you've done the opposite of that, and you've learned over time that that is the quickest way to crush your soul. Is
Oh,
when
I've had dynamic failures. I'll give you one. I mean, we started a company. This was just a few years ago. This was pre-COVID, so this was probably 2018. I thought this was going to be my unicorn. I thought this was going to be my next $1 billion thing, and it should have been, right, on paper. I had myself, and then we had a money partner, and then we had a technical partner, and we were building a platform to buy and sell houses effectively online.
That's
right?
awesome.
So a seller could put their property on there, and then we'd have multiple buyers, including these iBuyers like Open Door, and come on there, basically bid on the property, and it would display to the homeowner kind of like a kayak. Like if you're like, here's all your airlines tickets. Here's an offer for $150,000. Here's an offer. Like it would tell them. And
I can see it.
You pick one, and it was done. All built, all done.
I was gonna say like hotels.com or Carvana.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And
a
right
great
as
model.
we went to market, the financial partner decided he wanted a say at the table, and kind of jumped in the middle of it and started trying to dictate what was going to go down or what wasn't going to go down, or he wasn't going to put more money in, and all this. And so all the rules of the game changed, and it ultimately took the entire thing down. And ironically, it took it down 3 months before COVID hit. And so COVID hit, and this platform would have been the single greatest thing for COVID because nobody wanted anybody coming in their house.
Oh yeah, people were
But they
buying
still wanted
sight
to buy and sell.
unseen, overpriced, everywhere.
If you were the investor person, wouldn't you, if you were uncomfortable with the way that the person was running it, wouldn't you have stepped in as well?
It wasn't that he was uncomfortable. He believed that where his role as he come in was strictly financial, right?
Right.
He had absolutely no real estate experience, and in fact had no real business experience.
Sure.
He had been.
That's a problem.
He had been very.
For both of those things.
Well, he had been very fortunate in a previous business, right place, right time. Not taking anything away from him, but he had hit it, and it paid him hundreds of millions of dollars. And so he somehow thought that because of that, he was this great business guy. And again, not taking anything away from him.
No, if you don't fail, and you
And
don't
so
have
ultimately,
those
what
ups and
happened?
downs.
5 years before he had hit it big, he was a personal trainer. So he went from being a personal trainer to making several $100 million by an idea.
Oh,
And
I
it-
wanted that.
and it
My personal
crushed.
train again.
And so again,
but
it
he
still was
lacked
his
what
money.
you experienced.
Sure.
Right. I had the wisdom, the experience, and
Still
all the
his money.
resources. He had the money.
Yep.
And then we had a technical guy. And so it brought the whole thing down. And the reason it brought it all down is because there wasn't one dude in charge. Right? Like everybody didn't understand their role. And so this amazing thing with millions of dollars on the line ultimately failed. And it was heartbreaking. And, I have no problem admitting that we were right there, right place, right time, could have absolutely crushed, and it just fell apart. And so even when I've tried to go against the grain, against my better judgment, it just hasn't worked. My partners need to trust me to do what I'm there to
So there
do.
has to be one guy in charge.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, someone has to make a decision, and when you start to have it where other people want, now you can't get to decisions because like you can always voice. I mean, think about it. We always get in arguments, but I always say at the end of the day,
Always getting arguments.
we disagreements or debates
Or
or
every
whatever.
time we're together, we get in this sort of scuffle.
But I always
It's
say
fine.
to you, like, if that's the direction you want to go in, I will
support
support 100%, and no one will know that I have disagreed with you because at the end of the day, like you're the
It's a united
CEO,
front, yep.
and it's a united front, and we're going to make this happen. I can disagree with you, but still know when to like let it go.
Right.
Like that's how your partnership is successful.
I said V-neck t-shirt, AJ. He said round neck. I'm like, oh, God. Put my foot down. I'm putting my foot down. The girls were brave.
With the like letting go and that kind of thing, it is a very difficult thing for a lot of people,
Very
right?
difficult.
Because their identity, like who they are, what they do, everything is often tied into that. Is there anything?
Talking about me.
Is there anything that you like have gone through that you feel would someone who's maybe on that brink, or it's like, because you really do in a way lose your identity when you're not that guy anymore, like when you're graduating, but a lot of people don't see it like that they kind of lose themselves, right? Like, well, who am I now if I'm not the guy making the sales, or I'm not it's like because you're essentially giving up components of yourself, right, to someone who's better at it than you. That's the other hard thing is like to be good, you got to hire someone better than you.
Well, I think
and then it's
I think that I think you just have to realize how much of it is just BS. Like, I mean, it's just nonsense. Like, this business is not you, and this way you identify yourself is not you. Like look, Last time I checked, in the history of the world, nobody's ever gotten out alive.
Yep.
The Bible suggests one.
We all have a
Okay,
very
died first, but still.
finite amount of time on this
Yes.
planet. And you have to decide what is more important to you. That is it important to you that however many days, years, that you have, that you get a say in the way those look, or is it more important to you to hold on to some self-identity that is wrapped up in and is merely a label on you? Who gives a shit? I mean, like for me personally, what matters most to me is that whatever I've got left, and I think that most amazing CEOs and leaders would tell you the same thing. At some level, they've made this. They may not have verbalized it, but their brain is ticking like this, where the clock is ticking on me. I don't know how many days I've got left, but I know it's not infinite. And so I want to design and control as much of that time as I possibly can. And if I am trapped because I wasn't mature enough, and if I wasn't strong enough, and I wasn't intentional enough to take the steps to put the people, the processes, the leverage, the systems in place, and learn the skills that require to where this can actually be a business that pays me whether I show up or not, which then allows me to spend every day the way I want to spend it, then what right do I have to bitch about it? You can have one or you can have the other. You can sit around and act like you're a victim, which you're not, or you can take control. You know, there are real victims in the world. Most people listening to this podcast are not those. Like, you know.
Because they have the luxury to listen to this podcast.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right? If you're listening to this podcast or you're watching it on
You're
YouTube or
probably
you're probably not a victim.
Right.
Right? And if you can make a decision, then you can make a decision to acquire the skills and do what is necessary to actually turn your hustle into a real business. Now, whether you make that decision or not is purely up to you. But when you value time and what you have left much more than you value a label or you value a title or you value a bank account, and you're like, look, this is what it cost me to own my time. It might be $300,000, $500,000 a year, $1 million, I don't care what it is. And then you start working backwards. Right? $1 million a year. How do I go and create $83,000 a month on autopilot? Autopilot means different things. Autopilot means I get to do things in my organization, but I don't have to do them.
Yeah.
Right?
It ends up in your bank either way.
Yeah, I still get to do marketing. I still get to write copy. I still get to do all the things, but I don't have to do it. The money's going to show up either way. And to me, that's when life gets pretty good.
I think that one of the things that I hear when you say that is it's like you have to make a decision, and you can't delay the decision because a lot of people do this. They think, okay, like, well, I'm not quite ready yet, right? Like I need to get to this point before I start operating like a CEO. The problem with that is tomorrow might be the last day.
That's right.
So if you're like saying, well, I don't have enough time to like I get home at 8 o'clock, my kids are already in bed, but like I know when I get here that I'll be able to change that. The problem is you might not get there. Like you don't, like we think we have these luxuries, but we're very naive to the fact that like right now is that if you're listening, you're like, oh, I'm a hustler, but like, oh, I got to do it for 5 more years. Like you always hear that, you know, like it's okay to do that, but at the end of the day, it's not.
Well, I'll go one step further. If you really want to become a savage on this, I'll tell you, the listeners, exactly what to do. Is if you're a man, start with the number 78. If you're a woman, start with the number 82, and subtract your current age.
Sorry, what?
If you're a female, start with 82. If you're a man, start with 78. The average American male lives to 78. Average American female lives to 82.
Not the way I drive.
Go subtract your current age. Go multiply that times 365. Statistically speaking, that's how many days you have left on this planet. Okay? Then...
I don't know if that's depressing or exciting.
It's exciting because you get a say in every one of them. And you can take that number and go multiply it, take a third of it away because 8 hours a day, you're probably going to be asleep. So now you get down to how many waking days. Okay. And I do not care whether you're 20, 40, 50, 60.
The math is the same.
That number is too small.
Interesting.
Go
it's always too small.
Go take that number and go put it on your mirror in your bathroom.
And every day, mark it down.
Every day, mark it down.
I would suggest you go even lower.
And, well, the point being is that
just because you'll make them more most
whether
of those
you
days.
do it or not does not make it any less true.
Yeah.
In other words, before anybody just heard me say that, or whether or after, the number was still the number. All the only thing that's different is that you now know. So not doing something right now is a choice.
The awareness, yeah.
It's like you're making a choice that today's not my day. I just don't, and that's okay. But at least now it's a choice. You're not a victim. You are in control.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's power in that.
Jeez.
Like every morning I go mark it off my mirror, get the privilege.
Did you just calculate your days? Asshole, calculate mine.
I get the privilege of counting that number down. It's an honor.
Yeah.
Like think about today. Today, there's 900,000 people sitting in a hospital bed in the United States, right? Yeah. 10,000 people died today.
I lost my husband 3 years ago. I understand days left.
I get it. I know.
The math, I haven't done the math yet.
But when
He's not doing it for me, obviously.
Your vantage point, your appreciation for life is
way
so
huge.
much more.
Yeah.
Because you've got but most people don't even have that.
Yeah,
most people walk around, to your point, just ignorant that think tomorrow will just come.
See, now
and that's just not true.
Now I don't understand that. At this point now I'm like, I don't understand how you go from your 9-to-5 job and you've got your retirement, your pension, you're just counting on that to later spend time with your family. I'm like, now that I've lost my husband early, I was like, I don't understand that mentality.
That's my point.
And I'm sure before I did,
Of
now
course.
I don't.
And most people, I got the privilege of holding, one of my mentors was my uncle. And he spent his entire life building a massive travel business in the cruise industry. He's a very well-known CEO in the cruise industry.
Hopefully before COVID.
And he passed away when he was 60 years old. So he retired at 59, literally got diagnosed with cancer, and then died within a year. So his entire life was delayed gratification.
How fucking fair.
Right? He just put it all off,
Yeah.
and then they gave him a $30 million package when he left. So he had literally
He's saying, I got 30 years to just
30
enjoy
million
life.
or more
Yeah.
in the bank. And
He made 1 year.
And I got a phone call from my mother by his bedside in Daytona Beach, Florida. I was in Delray, and she asked me to come to Daytona as fast as humanly possible. He had just checked in with pneumonia.
It's not like a...
Get here as fast as you can. He's going to die. And by the way, I'm 53. 60 is not old.
It's not old.
I got up there. He's all hooked up to respirators and everything. He had lost all this weight. And I'm holding his hand, and then he takes a whiteboard and he writes on there, "Celebrate my life," and because he can't speak. And then he's like, I just wish I had more time, and passed away holding my hand. And I'll never forget that moment, because this guy I admired my whole life, tens of millions of dollars in the bank, and it literally could not buy him the only thing he wanted, which was one more minute, one more day. And so to your point, like when you just have this whole new appreciation for, man, how fragile this really is, why in the hell would you ever act like tomorrow is promised? Get to it. Like, why would you not want every one of the days you have left to be on your terms? And that's not going to happen if you're trading hours for dollars constantly. Build something. Put the people in place. I don't care what the risk looks like. I don't care what label you've got or what's going on, what block you've got. I can't do this. No. You can do anything. You may choose not to, but you don't say this can't or cannot. That is not true. This is a choice. Choose to put something in place, build a business, build a legacy, build wealth, build passive income to where you get to spend the days the way you want. It's that. And by the way, it's simple, but it ain't easy.
Yeah.
There's nothing easy about this, but it is definitely a simple concept that it is a choice. And then once you own that, then you start making different decisions.
Yeah, that self-ownership is huge.
Absolutely,
And so many
brother.
people don't do that. They're always looking to blame somebody else for whatever situation.
It's easy. It's that victim mentality. Yeah. And when you realize there are real victims, and you're not one of them.
You're not one of them.
You are a product of your choices. Just make better choices.
Nature and nurture.
Yep.
I came from nothing. You came from nothing.
Yeah, we all did. Yeah.
I assume you came from nothing.
Yeah.
It's probably the place
We're
to
pretty
wrap this.
successful.
I don't know. I don't think we can go any deeper.
I don't think I can handle it.
Where can people go to follow you, learn more about it, all the things you've got going on?
The easiest place to find me is probably on Instagram at Kent Clothier. You can always go to kentclothier.com or on Facebook. Find me there. I do a lot of interacting with people, on the social channels for sure.
Yeah. Guys, follow this man. Check out what he's doing. He's truly one of the most awesome people I know, but the depth of wisdom, as you heard in the podcast, he's gone through it all, and hopefully you got as many golden nuggets as I did. We see you guys on the next episode. Thank you. I just have to tell you about Kartra, the marketing platform that has seriously transformed my business. You know how running a business can be insanely time consuming, right? Well, Kartra has been a game changer for me. It's honestly like having an entire marketing team in my pocket. And what I love most is that it automates all the tedious daily tasks for me, from marketing to sales to even customer experience. I can't believe how much time and energy I've saved since I started using it. And get this, with Kartra, I can create websites, funnels, courses, membership sites, email campaigns, calendars, surveys, you name it. It's made managing my business so much simpler and more affordable. Honestly, I can't recommend Kartra enough. If you're curious, head to paidcreatepodcast.com/Kartra to start your trial. Trust me, you won't regret it.